Hey, good morning, y'all. Josh the Severe Weather. Happy Tuesday to you. The tropics are heating up in several basins of the world here. And real quick, I wanted to stop and just remember and honor those who were involved in the D-Day operation 79 years ago today. If you have family members who served in that, please accept my appreciation on their behalf. A very important day here 79 years ago. So anyway, let's go ahead and take a look at the tropics. Let me share my screen with you here, and we are going to keep an eye on maybe two potentially named storms here. Maybe. I say maybe because obviously we have to do some speculation to see what's going to happen. But perhaps a rare storm could form near the Azores. And excuse me, this is very rare for this time of the year. Typically, we don't see things getting going here until later on in the summer and into the fall when water temperatures are at their warmest. But the National Hurricane Center does have an eye on it. They do have that yellow lemon. And then behind that, probably a quieter weather pattern next week. And then something of at least something I'm taking notice on is some development potential here. I say potential because it's 2 weeks out, but something we're going to have to keep an eye on in the Western Caribbean as well. And if you are in the southeastern US and the Bahamas and Cuba and Mexico, you're going to want to keep an eye on how that develops as well. Real quick, this is the ONI, the Oceanic Nino Index. It's continuing to climb quickly here. In the last 2 weeks, we're up to 8 degrees Celsius, or not 8 degrees, 8 tenths of a degree Celsius. Whew, 8 degrees, I would be very concerned, above the average. Well on our way to an El Nino here this summer as that number continues to climb. It needs to be above half a degree above the average for at least some time before that is declared. But you can see we're definitely heading in that direction. And if this trend continues, we are well into an El Nino here into the summertime. Now, here's a look at why. Well, we've got warming across the entire Pacific Ocean and the tropical band here. And it's not much above average in the Western Pacific, but the Central and especially the Eastern Pacific are running hot. Now, the Atlantic is also running hot, and the Western Pacific or the Eastern Pacific is running cold, at least on the north side of the equator. What that means typically is that we've got a rare setup where typically wind shear would increase across the Atlantic basin, but because of this cooling here and this warming here, that's not necessarily going to be the case. So many of the statistical models, despite El Nino, are showing this being an active tropical season. And I tend to believe that's probably going to be the case. You can't just take a paintbrush over an El Nino and say, oh, it's not going to be busy, or a paintbrush over a La Nina and say, yes, it's going to be busy in the Atlantic. We learned that last year. We were in a strong La Nina for a while, or at least a moderately strong La Nina, and it was very quiet in July into August due to strong wind shear in this area because we had above average temperatures here. That has flipped, and despite the fact that El Nino typically leads to stronger trades that lead to more wind shear across the Atlantic, that will hurt the storm formation chance. Because we've got this cooler than average pocket of water here, this is called the PMM, by the way, Pacific Meridional Mode. That does not necessarily mean we're going to have stronger than average wind shear. In fact, it could mean the opposite. So something of concern, but my goal today is definitely not to scare folks. I just want you to start being prepared and realize that despite historically speaking, an El Nino leading to a less average season, I don't necessarily think that's going to be the case here. All right, so right now we've got an area with a 10% chance of development near the Azores, and it is not really in a spot of likely development, but tropical modeling here is showing that this could develop a warm core. This is from the Florida State cyclone phase page here, Florida State Meteorology. And right now it's got a cold core and pressures are high, but as we get into the Tuesday night, Wednesday time frame, modeling is showing this developing a warm core despite the fact that water temperatures are quite chilly. In fact, we see water temperatures in here that are only about 21, 22 degrees Celsius. Typically for a tropical system, a fully tropical system, ideally that water temperature is going to be 26, 27 degrees Celsius. So we're 5 degrees Celsius below that. So this is very rare to see. Something like this may try to develop a warm core. Honestly, we saw warmer water temperatures Memorial Day weekend off the southeast coast, and yet that did not get named. And why it didn't get named? I mean, yes, I'm a meteorologist. I could tell you the argument would be that it was attached to a front for a while, but honestly, it makes no sense that this area could potentially get a name, and that one didn't get a name. But I'm staying away from all that because it's not my role. My role is just to talk about what's out there and show you what is possible here. So winds are probably only going to get up over 35 knots. So we're not looking at a hurricane here east of the Azores. We could have tropical storm wind conditions, and that's really about it. And surface pressures, again, aren't going to be super deep, only down to 995 millibars, which would at worst be a moderate tropical storm with winds maybe around 50 to 60 miles per hour. But it's near land, near the Azores anyway, and it's got the eye of the National Hurricane Center on it. And you can see that circulation right here. Let me annotate that for you guys to see. Here's the circulation, and what's going to happen is these are the Azores right here. The center itself is just east. It's going to come down and then loop back out to the north and east. It has a very small chance that's going to actually get something tropical going here. So it's weird that we're even talking about it, but it's out there, so I will continue to mention it. Across the rest of the Atlantic, nothing really super concerning as far as tropical development, but what I am concerned about here is this amount of moisture over the northwestern Caribbean. It's got a lot of wind shear coming across it. You can see strong westerlies here, but all this moisture is heading into Cuba, Jamaica, and western Haiti. And we're continuing to see heavy amounts of rain across this area. There's not going to be a named system out of this, but there is going to be a lot of rain across this region. We have mountains across some of these countries, Cuba and Jamaica and Haiti. We have the potential of seeing significant amounts of rain leading to significant flooding. And obviously that is concerning for those residents, especially in Haiti. Haiti is just very vulnerable to flooding. And you can see here over this last little notch here on the satellite image, that we do, in fact, have some heavy storms developing in Haiti. Meanwhile, in Puerto Rico, we're having none of that. We've got strong high pressure aloft. We actually have some dangerous heat ongoing in Puerto Rico. Heat indices over 110 degrees again today, maybe even 120 in some spots. So if you are vacationing or planning a vacation here, they are in a heat wave. So I did want to make you aware of that as well. Anyway, let's move along here and take a look at the satellite image from weatherbell.com. You can see multiple waves coming off of Africa and then very quickly dying. Really no concerns for any kind of development at this point. We see strong westerlies here over the northern and central Atlantic wrapping into our system here. We've got an upper level low near Nova Scotia, and in between that and a big system over the northern parts of Canada. A lot of dry air coming down from Quebec, leading to a high fire danger. That extends into New York State, Pennsylvania, New Jersey here today and tonight. If any storms do try to pop on this boundary, that lightning could certainly ignite some wildfires across that region. Here's the area of storms we're keeping an eye on in the northwestern Caribbean. Not an area of concern at this point, except for very heavy rain across this region. The Gulf looks pretty quiet with a bunch of disorganization here along a weak boundary that's leading to storms in Louisiana and Texas, Mississippi, and South Alabama. Water temperatures are running a little cool still here in the Northeast Gulf due to the recent cool spell we've had here in the eastern United States, at least the Southeast. They're definitely running cool right along the Atlantic seaboard, so people heading to the beaches here this week are going to notice that water remains cold and not very great for swimming at this point, but that's only local to the immediate shelf of the coast. The rest of the Atlantic basin's running hot and well above average, 2 to 3 degrees Celsius above the average. So the main development region remains very hot. As long as wind shear stays on the low side, we definitely could have higher the number of systems here over the Atlantic basin here this season, especially in the next couple of months. What we like to look for is the Madden-Julian oscillation. When it gets to certain phases, it becomes more favorable for tropical development. Right now, we are in a phase 8, which favors development, not just the Western Pacific, but over the Indian Ocean. Well, not really the Indian Ocean, but Africa and the Western Hemisphere. But that is going to shift towards the Indian Ocean, which favors storm development across the Atlantic basin, especially over the Western Atlantic basin, including the Gulf and Caribbean. According to this model, the Australian model, that phase shift into phase 2 is going to be around the 20th. But it's possible it could take longer than that. It may hold off till the 25th. But in this zone here, phase 2 into phase 3, we typically see more favorable conditions for storms that can impact the southeastern United States and surrounding countries. So around the 20th and on, we have to keep an eye on things as wind shear will tend to relax. And as water temperatures continue to warm, we obviously have a little bit more concern at that point. But it's 2 weeks off, so there can still be changes in that. Here's a look at the GFS model, and you can see obviously nothing of major concern in the next week here. Just a big high pressure southeast of Bermuda. But as we get into the 15th and 20th, we see this high pressure ridge beginning to build back into Texas and the southern plains. And this can allow pressures to drop here near the Central American coastline. And as we get on into about the 20th or so, the GFS model insists that something is going to try to get going somewhere near Cuba and maybe track into the Eastern Gulf or onto the other side of Florida as well. This is the recent run, and it shows a tropical storm southwest of Tampa. Again, 16 days out, not a lot of certainty at this point. The run before it, on the other hand, goes east of Florida and has it over the Bahamas. The run before that, by the way, has this system going into the south central Gulf near the Yucatan. But this system is not formed, so I can't tell you with certainty if this is actually going to happen or not. It's just something I'm going to be watching at this point. So no need to cancel trips, no need to start freaking out. When I show the GFS 14, 15, 16 days out, really it just gives us an idea. It doesn't give us a viable solution at this point. I want you to just be aware of that at this point. So not really freaking out yet, but obviously we've got a lot of rain in the coming days here across Cuba, Haiti, Jamaica, and the Bahamas. As we go on further, we can see a drying trend over Texas and Louisiana. It's going to get pretty hot, and underneath that ridge, we will likely see at least enhanced rainfall, but possibly a tropical system forming here around the 21st or 22nd of July or June. Oh man, I need some coffee here. All right, you can see on the ensembles from the GFS as well, very wet pattern here the next 2 weeks. The Western Gulf very dry. That is good news. We're not going to likely see any kind of development here in the Western Gulf. So Texas and Louisiana are okay for now. Florida quiets down some as well. But obviously we're keeping an eye on here on Central America and the Northwestern Caribbean. Here is the GFS from yesterday afternoon. And I kind of showed you this, but I'm going to show you again. Development near Honduras around the 19th of June, and then tracking northwestward or northward towards the Yucatan Channel. And I've seen this a million times where the GFS loves to spit out a hurricane 12 to 16 days out, and then it tucks its tail and goes back in the other direction. So I'm watching for you guys, but I'm not yet really that concerned, especially not on one model run at this point. All right, so now we've got a system developing in the Western Pacific we have to keep an eye on. Not really a threat to land at this point. The GFS actually has it kind of spinning here slowly as a tropical cyclone and then developing into a typhoon. And then it looks like it's going to recurve kind of east of where Mawar recurved here a couple weeks ago. And when I talk about a recurving typhoon, I'm not saying this because I'm bored and I got nothing to talk about. But this could certainly play into the weather down the road here across the Eastern Pacific and the United States. Typically, recurving typhoons lead to an enhancement in the jet stream, enhanced severe weather, and more temperature variations. So the second half of June could get very interesting, maybe even early July, depending on how this plays out. You can see the GEFS has decent agreement here. A lot of our models show development into a typhoon with pressures down into the 960s and 970s. Would not be a severe typhoon, but certainly one that could get intense for a while here southeast of Iwo Jima. And then that's going to recurve nearer to the east of Japan, and likely over that cooler water, we're not going to see it become too strong, or at least it'll be weakening. This is the GFS model, and you can see it's already starting to turn away. Pressures are around 960 millibars, and then gradually they drop into the 970s and then 980s southeast of Japan next week. And then that's out to sea. Oh, by the way, there is more development over the South China Sea here between Hong Kong and Taiwan next week. And Taiwan could get hit by a cyclone here around this time next week. So I'm going to keep an eye on that. That is going to be a weaker system, but locally could be briefly strong and bring a lot of rain to Taiwan and to some of the far southwest islands here of Okinawa as well. But likely going to die after that. So very busy in the Western Pacific Basin here. Here's the HWRF model, and you can see development here in the next 24 hours into a cyclone, which will eventually be a typhoon. And eventually this recurves away from land, so not really a threat to Taiwan at this point. We're going to keep an eye on development in here as well, across the South China Sea for the following week. Here is the Joint Typhoon Warning Center track. You can see it turns right of Iwo Jima. And between Minami, Daito Jima, and Iwo 2 over the eastern or east of these islands and over the Western Pacific, but could be a formidable typhoon at that point around the 11th and 12th of the month of June. Water temperatures are not super hot here. In fact, they've cooled off due to the fact that we did have a super typhoon Mawar here a week and a half ago. So waters are cooler than average. This storm's going to go just to the east side of this cool pool, but it will still be over warm enough water for a typhoon to form, and then it'll hit cooler waters here in a couple of days. We've got another system that I'm watching here that's very quickly developing. It's a tropical cyclone in the Indian Ocean. This is India right here. I'm sorry, the satellite is not very easy to track. But waters are super hot here over the Arabian Sea. This is the Indian Ocean. Here's the Arabian Sea. We had a big storm last month, Mocha, that came through Myanmar and far eastern Bangladesh. This storm is going to go on the west side of India into water temperatures that are super hot. They are running as many as 3 degrees Celsius above average. So a very favorable spot here in the Arabian Sea for very quick development. And the one thing that is concerning for anybody in this area is that the forecast track is extremely unstable and uncertain. We've got some models that take the system into Oman. We've got others that take it up towards Pakistan and far western India. We've got some that kill it here as it hits colder water over the North Arabian Sea. But some of these models go super deep on the storm, 930s and 940s. So what could be a very powerful cyclone here in a couple of days. The GFS model is a bit of an outlier. It very quickly deepens this storm here over the next 3 days down into the 940s. It takes it northwest and sends it into Oman here by this time next week, really next Monday, as a formidable cyclone. Then it weakens quickly, but a big rainmaker for Oman. So we could get some Muscat love here in Oman. However, and here's a closer look here. Muscat's the capital, by the way. That's in northeastern Oman. This will probably come in south of the Cape here and weaken quickly. However, the Icon model completely disagrees and says the storm is going to take a little bit longer to develop, and then after it does so, it's going to be tracking east of north towards India over the weekend and deepening to 928 millibars coming into far western parts of India. And that obviously is very concerning to residents here of northwestern India. A very deep cyclone, which will weaken as it comes into landfall. The waters are a lot colder here, but it's going to be an impressive cyclone if it heads in that direction. Then the Canadian model is kind of in between the two, where it has development, but then eventually drifts eastward and kind of misses the window to really get going here and moves into southwestern parts of India, including Mumbai area here over the weekend. European model says doesn't go out that far, but well, the 12Z doesn't. But it says kind of in between the two, where it gets very strong and then slowly weakens and drifts and fades when it gets towards the Pakistan coastline. So a very significant storm no matter what, but we don't know if it's going to come in south of Mumbai or if it's going to come up near Karachi, Pakistan, which at this point should be a lot weaker, or if it's going to drift northwest towards Oman. So we've got 4 countries watching this now. We've got Oman, Iran, Pakistan, and India all watching this cyclone, which could be a very intense storm here, the strongest in the Arabian Sea of the season. But we have no clue exactly where it's going to go. So, of course, their forecast is in between all the models, and it goes in this direction, but an extreme amount of uncertainty. So I'll keep you guys posted on that in the coming days. Thank you so much for your time today. I very much appreciate you. If you did enjoy this video, please consider subscribing. More tropical cyclone videos in the coming days here. And if there's any major weather in the U.S., I'll of course be talking about that as well. I want to give all the glory to God who has called me to do this as a Christian man. I want to just share real quick a passage from Romans 16:17-19 from the New International Version. I urge you, brothers and sisters, to watch out for those who cause divisions and put obstacles in your way that are contrary to the teaching you have learned. Keep away from them, for such people are not serving our Lord Christ, but their own appetites. By smooth talk and flattery, they deceive the minds of naive people. Everyone has heard about your obedience, so I rejoice because of you, but I want you to be wise about what is good and innocent about what is evil. This is a strong word of caution from Paul to the Church of Romans. And I heard this in church on Sunday. We have recent high school graduates that are going off to college. There's going to be a lot of things out there in the world that look great, that look super tempting. But unfortunately, these are not what the Lord has taught us. These are to serve people that have swayed away from the world and who are causing division and being narcissistic. And I'm seeing this more and more every day. And I just wanted to get that out there because it's on my mind, realizing that I too am tempted by this division. However, my goal is to encourage people, to show them how Christ has loved me, how the Lord has loved me, how nothing good doesn't come from God. I mean, you can't spell good without God anyway, right? How serving myself, serving things like money, serving, political parties, whatever it is, whatever it is going on, that none of that is being obedient to the Lord. The Lord has given his son, Jesus Christ, as a sacrifice so that I can have eternal life and that many others can. And my goal is to give him that relationship, give him the knowledge that I have in him, give him all the glory, and not give glory in false teachers, not give glory in serving myself, my appetites, other temptations. Another good verse, 2 Timothy 3:1. But mark this, there will be terrible times in the last days. People will be lovers of themselves, lovers of money, boastful, proud. That's a big word these days. Abusive, disobedient to their parents, ungrateful, unholy, without love, unforgiving, slanderous, without self-control, brutal, not lovers of the good, treacherous, rash, conceited, lovers of pleasure rather than lovers of God, having a form of godliness but denying its power, having nothing to do with such people. And really, it's without love. It's the people that say my way or the highway, or you're full of hate because you don't believe what I believe. As a Christian, I do not want to share any hate with anybody, but I'm also aware that people are going to not only dislike my beliefs, but maybe hate me because of them and say that I'm a hateful person. And it couldn't be any farther from the truth. I'm here to love God. And if it weren't for God creating the world and creating every part of it, then we wouldn't even have the option to have that hate. So just wanted to share that with you guys because it's very encouraging to me. And I am happy to pray for you if you're struggling with something like this as well. If you could pray for me, that'd be great as well. Thank you so much for your time today. I hope you have a wonderful Tuesday, and we'll catch you again soon. God bless you.